Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how I went from this image to that image in Photoshop. Alright guys, my name is Philip and let's jump right into Photoshop. So this picture has been taken recently in the States, which is why I haven't posted very much over the last couple of weeks, because I have been traveling. And this one is the second one I think out of a group of pictures which will come up next, and there will also be a video talking about the trip itself. But let's go to the matter at hand. Now this one was in a beautiful cave, right? You had to walk through water to get there. And because it is a waterfall, as you can see here, there's a waterfall, I had some issues with water on my lens, which I realized far too late, of course, but better late than never, I suppose. But there's a chance we can fix this here in Photoshop. So let's make a new layer by hitting Command-Alt-Shift+N on the keyboard. Get a nice color, like that, no, like that one. And let's just start drawing in the issues here. Okay, so here we have a typical lens flare. Right, that's something which is not very pleasant, but we're gonna have to get rid of it. Then we have different kind of sprinkles of water on the lens. Of course we do, like here. And actually there was a very nice red here in that rock, right? But it's kind of invisible due to the light which is coming out from here. So I want to bring this nice red out in the rocks again once more to get the full beauty as it was when I found it. Also, I want to give the stones in the water here some more color, because they're just kind of, lost in that water. And yeah, that's going to be it. Then we're going to lighten up the whole center a little bit. And once we have done that, we are going to be finished with this particular image. So let's start up with the cleanup of the lens flare as well as the water sprinkles on the image. So let's get started with the actual lens flare. Okay, so the big green thing here. So I was using a wide angle lens, right? So that's a massive lens, at least, well, kind of big if you want in terms of the diameter of the lens itself, the glass. Therefore, when the light came in, it just got reflected on that particular lens, which is captured as this kind of colorful thing. Usually I would say, hey, that's kind of beautiful, but in this particular case, good dang, we have to get rid of that. And a lens flare can occur for one of two reasons, or actually two reasons altogether as well. So either it is because the light is different, right? So if that is brighter than the surrounding, then you will see the lens flare. Or as in our case, it is both, and the color can be different as well. Right, so if that is green, as it is right now, obviously it will not be the same color as the background. And a quick check you can do, you can just hit on the layer you have Command-Shift and U, exactly, and then we can just desaturate the whole image, like that, and we can see that if we desaturate it, it looks way better. Okay, so the main issue is actually the color and not necessarily the light. There still is some sort of a bit of a difference right here, so you can still see there is a lens flare, but it's going to be easier to clean up. So, okay, let's make that go back where we were initially. So what I normally do, I'll just create a new layer by hitting Command-Alt-Shift+N on my keyboard for new. And then I change the blending mode of this particular layer from normal down to color. Okay, so let me give you an example. So if I hold B, or if I hit B on my keyboard, and I make my brush a little bit nice large. If I hold Alt, I can choose a color which I would like to paint in. Okay, so I'm choosing this kind of whatever rock color it is right here. And if I paint in now, you can see that I'm, instead of painting like one kind of line of color, I'm just changing the color of whatever is already in the image. Okay, so in this particular case, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use this color, and with an opacity of, let's say, 40%, I'm just going to go over to change this color from this particular rock here. Okay. I'm going to go over as often as necessary. I'm going to choose different kind of colors just to vary a little bit, maybe a bit from here. Let's make that a bit smaller and go over here as well with this color down there. Nope, that was too blue. Okay, I'm just going to be obviously very quick. So the real image took me about, I think, 5 hours to complete, but just because I was obsessed with detail. And in this particular rework here, I'll just try to hurry up as best as I can. And there is a bit more here. Okay, awesome. And actually, well, I don't. Okay, cool. That shall be enough for now. Ah, no, it's not enough. There is still a little bit of green. Can you see it? Let's just get rid of it. Take that. Okay, and maybe while we're at it. Yeah, you see what I mean? There's no end. Okay, let's get out of here. And you can already see it looks already better, because just the color is not that different anymore, right? Because green and stone does look very different. Okay, let's tackle the next issues. which are right on the top of here. I'm going to use exactly the same layer I have so far, and we're just going to continue with what I have done before. So I'm going to select the color, I'm going to paint over, but I'm going to make my brush a bit bigger to something like that. And I'm just going to continue to take out this kind of bluish color out of this particular rock here on the side. Okay, just like that. Awesome. Let's go a bit higher and take some color from back here and just bring that in ever so slowly. Also here. Cool. So I would suggest I'll bring you back in like a minute once I have done that, because then you don't have to watch me doing the same thing over and over. See you in a minute. And we are done painting in the color into the spots where it was needed. Let's have a look at the before and after when it comes to that. Awesome. Cool, so it's way less blue and we don't have as much green back here. There's still a little bit left down here in the corner, but I'm just trying to ignore that as best as I can right now. Okay, so next things next, let's hit J on the keyboard, which will in my particular case give me the patch tool, as you can see here. And in order to use the patch tool, I have to have a layer with actual information on it. What I will do on my keyboard, I'll hit Command-Alt-Shift+N-E, which is a so-called stamp visible. And what that does, it's going to copy everything that you can see on, on the screen, on the picture, onto a new layer. Okay, so I have hit the buttons, and here's the new layer. And the new layer has everything which we have done on the color layer as well as the original. Awesome. Let's zoom in and let's find a spot where we can start. For example, here. Let's just use that patch tool, go around one of these nice sprinkles and just pull that over. Hit Command D to deselect, and we can see that the patch tool is actually amazing in just getting rid of these tiny little patches everywhere. So I'll just do the same thing for all of them until I'm completely satisfied. Ideally, I'd also come back after a couple of moments just to make sure that my eyes are not getting used to the way the patches are lightening up the surrounding, right? So I can see there's still some light here and there's still some light here, but I would just come back later and check whether or not I have gotten all of these tiny little things. Here you are. There's no reason to hide. Okay, let's pull it over here. Command D to deselect. And we can also try to get this one, even though that's more tricky because it's on an edge. But let's just see what happens if I pull that up to here, hit deselect. Awesome, this little tiny thing we can also get rid using Shift J maybe, does that work? It does not, I have to select it by hand. The spot healing brush tool, okay, and I don't want it as big, far too big. I'm just gonna click in once and see what it does. That's good enough for me. We could also use the clone stamp tool, but hey, why would we if we have to, right? Cool. So let's actually see if we are able, you see that there's a lot of light coming from here going up there. So if I hit, no, I can't hit it, but if I go back to my patch tool here, and I make a rough selection to something like, let's say that, I just want to see what happens if I pull that over. Nah, that was not that great. Let's try that again. Like that. Deselect. So how was that? I think that's getting better. I think I'm going to continue to try to, take different bits and pieces and just drag them around until I'm happy with the slightly reduced light on this particular corner. Okay, awesome. I'm back in 1 minute. Awesome, and we are back, and as it looks, we have gotten rid of most of the sprinkles, and I'm actually quite happy with it for spending about, I don't know, a minute and a half. So that's not bad at all. Awesome, let's stick with that. So the next thing we should try is probably to darken down a little bit of that picture, okay? Because it's still a little bit too bright overall for my personal taste. And that's obviously always a bit of a personal taste. So in this particular case, I will just use a simple curve adjustment layer, and I'll bring it down just a little bit to something like that maybe. Once I have done that, I should probably invert that layer by hitting Command and I, and if I do that, I'm going to hide the effect everywhere. And if I use a white brush now and paint on my layer, on my image here, then I can choose where I would like to have this increased darkness on my image, okay? So if I zoom in, and let's say I want it to be a little bit less visible right here. So I have to pay with white, okay, with white, so make sure that's white selected. And I'm just going to go over a couple of times here, just make sure to darken down these areas just a little bit. And especially this side, I have the feeling it should be a little bit darker. Awesome. Okay, and maybe here a little bit as well, and down here, why not? Awesome. And also, well, in the original, I also went in and darkened down manually all these kind of, folds here within the rock. I'm not going to do that obviously right now, but you get the idea. You can spend ages on these kind of things. So let's darken all that down just a notch. Also do you, and maybe even, no, actually no, not you. But maybe the water a little bit. It's a little bit too bright. Awesome. We can also darken down this corner a bit. We don't need that in the image. Cool. So let's work on the color a little bit more. And as I mentioned before, there is actually quite a nice red in that particular mountain right here. And for whatever particular reason, it's just not really nice in the image. So let's just bring it back where it was when I found it. So let's just create a normal hue saturation layer and increase the saturation. I'm going to bring it to something like, let's say here is not bad. Awesome. If I wanted to, I could also change the hue just a tiny bit to make it a bit more red. I'm just going to do it ever so slightly to something like that, maybe. Okay, let's leave it there. And what I'll do, I'll hit Command and I on my keyboard again. I will hide the whole effect, and with a normal brush, I can now paint in where I want the effect to be visible. So I'm just going to go in manually, and I'm just going to bring that red into the areas where I would like it. And I want it definitely, definitely here. I also want a little bit back here. Okay, let's paint it in. And I suppose it also increased slide colors, yes, have been increased there as well. Okay, I'm not sure if I wanted too much here. I'll just go over it once. And if I felt like, I could also take the colors from here and put it over there. And I think actually that's what I ended up doing in my original processing as well. Cool, so that's, I think it's okay with the colors. Let's stick with those for now. You get the idea, right? You can change them, you can bring them back, whatever you need to do. Awesome. Let's create a stamp visible. So I'm going to copy everything I have just done onto a new layer by hitting Command-Alt-Shift+E once again. And once I have done that, I'm going to go to Filter and then Camera Raw Filter. And once that has loaded up, we are going to identify the clarity slider that's down here. And I'm just going to drag it all the way to the right. Why am I doing that? Well, have a look at the rock, and particularly at the upper area right here. Okay, let's zoom in there a little bit. Okay, if I go to the right with this particular slider, it adds this amazing, well, clarity, and I just love that kind of thing in these rocks. Okay, so I'll drag it all the way. And theoretically, I suppose we could also, let's get out of here for a moment. Once more, no, too far. Okay, let's do that. Maybe we could also play around with the vibrance a little bit, but we could also leave that for a tiny bit later. And maybe a little bit more contrast just for the wall on the side. Perfect. Let's hit OK. And again, that's quite a strong effect. So I don't actually want it everywhere, right? So you see if I toggle that on or off, it's quite a big change to the image. And I don't really like what it's doing to that water or to the waterfall itself. So in this particular case, I will again use the inversion. So what I have to do first, I have to give the layer mask, because it's just a simple layer. So I'm going to click on the little layer mask symbol down here, and now I have the layer mask. And if I now hit Command and I on the keyboard, I can hide the whole effect. Okay, and once more, I'm going to use my brush, and with white, I'm just going to paint in the image where I want the effect to be visible. So I want it here, and I want it a little bit here, and maybe I don't. I think I want it here, and I want it here as well. And I do want it here. Okay, and I think I also want it here. I like these kind of stone structures on the side here. That's kind of cool. Let's make it a bit smaller and also in the stair. Why not? Which is, by the way, just a tree where somebody nailed in some sort of rudimentary steps. Awesome. Okay, I think we can leave it there for now. Maybe let's give it a bit of a swirl up here. Okay, that is not bad at all. Cool, let's zoom out and let's see how we like it so far. So I think what I would like to do, I'm going to hit Command-Alt-Shift+N on my keyboard once more, just to create a new layer. And on that new layer, I'm going to change the blending mode from normal down to color once more, because I'm not 100% satisfied with the color we have on the top right-hand side here. So what I'll do is I'm just going to take the color from the left-hand side and pop it over onto the right. So again, I'm going to hold Alt on my keyboard pressed, where I can select the color now, and I'm going to select, let's say, something like that. Let's see how that looks. Make the brush nice and large, and then, ooh, far too strong, 20%, no more. Even still too strong, 10%, no more. Okay, let's give that also here. And I suppose we could also take out some of the blue. So let's go to a color balance. And let's go to the, I suppose it's the midtones. I actually never know exactly. I'm going to have to check. Let's take some of the blue out and add some of the red. Okay, I like that. Cool. So let's hit Command and I, invert that, and just bring it over with a brush, and let's say 30%, bring it over into this particular stone area here on the right hand side. Okay, I think that fits a little bit better than this purple-ish, blue-ish color stuff which was there before. Probably I should have gone a little bit further with that, but you know, you get the idea. Normally I would have drawn that, I suppose, up until here. That looks kind of natural. So let's go back and forth. Yeah, I like the color way more than it has been before. Awesome. So we could still, I think, increase the saturation a tiny bit, but for that I'm just going to create a new stamp visible by hitting Command-Alt+Shift+E on my keyboard, and I'll go back to filter, and then I'm going to use one from the Nick collection. There's one which I always love in most of my images, and also in this one, and that's the tonal contrast. So let's load that up. One day it's going to be loading. Yes, you can do it. Here we go, and let's go down, hit T for tonal contrast. Awesome. And let's see if we can use that in any way. Yeah, I can already see it's bringing out the structure of that rocks a little bit better. So let's just take that. It's going to think for a second, and once it's done, I'll bring you back. And it has been done. Awesome. Let's have a look at the before and after. So that's before, and that is after. And if I zoom into a certain position, let's say here, and I switch that off and on, you can definitely see there is a big difference in structure, right? So it's a little bit too strong, of course. That's why I will do the usual thing. Let's have a quick look here. Yeah, I love what it does to this particular rock. Cool. Let's leave it on, pop a layer mask on it, hit Command and I to invert that selection or that layer mask. And with that, I'm going to hide the whole effect on my image. Now with an opacity of say 20% and a white brush, I can just start bringing the effect through wherever I have the need to have it. Don't even know if that makes sense, but I'm just going to assume it does. Okay, let's bring it through here a little bit. I will also bring it through slightly, but not much there. I will, however, bring it through here because I love it. Awesome. Also a little bit here, and maybe there. Cool. Let's try down here a little bit as well. We still have to take care of this particular lens flare. That's actually what we do next before I forget it. Cool. Okay, that's not bad. I like that. That gives the rocks, yeah, it increases the structure just ever so slightly, and that is exactly what I was looking for in this particular case. Awesome. Let's create a curve adjustment layer and bring it down. I'll bring it down to something like that, something crazy. Cool. Hit Command and I to hide that, and then I'm going to go in. Oops, I didn't want to hide that there. Cool. I go down, and I'm going to have a look at this particular remainder as better of that lens flare. So I'm going to make a brush which is about that size, and with an opacity of 10%, I'll slowly start to decrease the brightness of that area here. Okay, ever so slowly. These things, they take time, right? If you want to be good in what you're doing, let's say, and if you want to make sure that it's not too obvious that you try to hide something there, do take your time. I take my 10-15 minutes for each of these spots just because I can, and because I have nothing to do. Just kidding. But I want to make sure that it looks natural once I'm finished, right? In this particular case, obviously I'm hurrying a lot, but you do get the idea. So ideally what you would do, you would zoom out, okay? And you would see if when you zoom out and you zoom back in, if it jumps into your eye. If it does, then it's not completely correct yet, okay? So in my case, I think we have done a good job. It could do a bit better, maybe. Let's see, if we go down here and we just continue to do the same thing here, just a tiny bit more on the edges here as well. Okay, something like that. And I think it is not bad. Cool. I'm going to leave it like that. You get the idea. You just, you do your thing, you decrease your brightness, and you bring it back and forth, and you decide once it's good. Now, there is a little bit of blue left down here, which is really bugging me a lot. This particular one down here. So, as usual before, Command-Alt+Shift+N to create a new layer, change the blending mode to color, and then with a decently sized brush and the color which comes from down here, I'll just bring that color through first of all, because there is some sort of purple and blue in here. Let's increase the opacity to 30%. Nope, this one. Okay, way better. Awesome, I'm liking it. Cool. Let's go back to the curve adjustment layer we have just used to darken down this area here. And with an opacity of 10%, I'll also darken down this, because that is just a piece of rock. I don't want the attention to be on this piece of rock. And there was a bright spot, and if there is a bright spot, then the attention will be there. So let's just bring it down a little bit. Also, you just bring it down, Awesome. Cool, way better. Let's have a look if that worked. So that worked with the color and these two together. Yeah, definitely. Cool, way better. Now the attention is more on the waterfall and on the piece of wood than on this particular weird looking rock, right? Which we don't want. Cool. So let's create a little bit of a vignette, right? I'm a big fan of vignettes, and there are different ways in which you can do it. I'm just now deciding to use the curve adjustment way, just because that is what I have decided right now. So I'm going to create a curve adjustment layer. I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up to something like that. Okay. I'm going to close it down. I'm going to hit M on my keyboard, or maybe Shift M on my keyboard. And if I hit Shift M on my keyboard, I'll get the ellipse tool. Okay, here on the top left-hand corner, you can see it. Now what I'll do, I'll just draw in a circle to somewhere like, let's say here. Okay, we can still move that around a little bit to something like that, I suppose. Then on my keyboard, I'm going to hit Shift and Backspace, and it's going to ask me what it has to do with the selection I have just made. Okay, so what does it have to do with the circle? Remember, I have just created a layer mask before. I have created a curve adjustment layer before. So if I say fill it with black, which I will, then it's going to fill that circle with black on the curve adjustment layer. Okay, so that means black is hiding. Remember, black is hiding. So in this particular case, this curve adjustment layer is not visible where the circle is. Let's hit Command and D to deselect. Okay, so you can see it brightens up everything except the area which I wanted to brighten up. No big deal. Let's select it and hit Command and I, which inverts it. So now we have a bright circle in the middle. What I'll do now with the layer selected, I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And I'm just going to blur the hell out of it to maybe something like that. Yeah, I'd say something like that is not bad. Let's hit OK. And what I'll do now, I'll select that layer and I hit Command and J, which will duplicate it. Okay. And now I'll go in, and instead of increasing the brightness, I'll decrease the brightness a little bit, just a little bit. Awesome. Then I'll select my layer mask, this one here, hit Command and I, and now I have the exact opposite of what I did before. Okay, so before I had an increased brightness, right, and I just had it here, and now I have a decreased brightness, and I just have it everywhere else, right? So because you compare the layer masks, you can see they fit on each other if you want. Cool. So that's one thing I like to use to darken and lighten centers. And in this particular case, I think it would also be wise to try, yeah, let's see what happens, okay? Let's put a bit of an Orton effect in there. So I'm going to hit Command-Alt-Shift and E on my keyboard to create the so-called stamp visible. And once I have that, I'm going to change its blending mode from normal down to soft light. And once I have done that, I'm going to go up to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And then I'm going to blur that to an extent. And it depends what you choose. There will be different kind of effects. And when I say that, I mean, it depends on the blur, right? And you can achieve different effects with that particular technique. So I might go for something like that. Let's hit OK. Cool. Obviously far too strong, right? I don't want that everywhere. But I do like what it does in the upper part here, in the top left, with the rocks here. It makes them look a little bit more mystical for some weird reason. So let's do that. Let's hit Command and I to hide the effect everywhere after using a layer mask on it. Let's hit B on the keyboard to get my brush, make it a little nice and large. Hit a 2 on my keyboard to change the opacity to 20%. And then let's just bring that in. Oh yeah, give me that magic. Awesome. Cool, I like that a lot. Also, this can be darkened down a little bit. Why wouldn't it? Let's go here. Here. Okay, that is nice. Cool. Let's go back. Yeah, I like that. It's pretty, at least these rocks here, they're pretty close to what I had before as well, and I'm very happy with them. Perfect. So the last thing we could do, if we felt like, is sharpening the image a little bit. At least these kind of rock areas, because, you know, I'm so close, they might as well be sharp on also these kind of stairs here. So let's just sharpen up the image when it comes to a particular area. So for that, I'm going to create once more another star visible. So I'm going to hit Command, Alt, Shift, and E on the keyboard, just to, you know, copy everything which is visible onto a new layer, as you can see right here in the lower right-hand corner. Once I have done that, I'm going to change the blending mode from normal down to overlay. It's going to look a bit weird. And then I'm going to go to Filter, Other, and High Pass. Boom. I'm going to choose a radius which is very low or very small. Let's say 0.5. I'm going to hit OK. and I'm going to zoom in into an area I would like to sharpen. Let's just say the stairs. Why not? So now I have this weird looking layer, and on its own it's not doing much. So what I'll do, I hit Command and J as often as I have to. Every time I'm hitting Command and J, I'm making a copy of that layer, and every time I do so, the image is going to get more sharp. Okay, let's overdo it. Cool, now I have made like 50 copies or something, which is obviously far too much, and it's actually destroying the image a little bit more. But you also see that the sharpness in the image itself, let me delete a couple of those. I think 3 might be an appropriate number. Let's group them up, hitting Command and G. And if I switch it on or off, you can see that the sharpness is definitely increased, especially visible if you have a look at these kind of the screws here and these kind of things. If I switch that on, these areas are much sharper. And that's something I like to an extent, and not everywhere, right? So now I have them grouped up, so I can put a layer mask on that group. I just click the layer mask, it's on the group, and I hit Command and I to hide this additional sharpness. And once more, with a brush, I can just go in an opacity of 30% and paint white where I want to have the additional sharpness to be visible. And that is completely up to you guys. Maybe a little bit, I don't know. I never do. And here, that's a very nice structural rock right here. The color is beautiful. So let's increase it there a little bit. We can also bring it up right here a little bit. Cool. And I suppose maybe in this area right here as well. Perfect. Okay, and that is all I would do when it comes to sharpening the image a little bit more. Awesome. So now just to recap, I'm going to hit Command-Alt-Shift+N for a new layer. I'm going to select a nice super bright color for my brush, make the opacity to 70%, and let's see, have we done everything we wanted to do? So the lens flare is kind of gone. Well, there's a tiny bit left, but again, I was incredibly fast, right? So take your time. So I'll take that as a success. That's a win, okay? All these tiny sprinkles we had here before, they're gone as well, which is cool. We have the color back here, which is awesome. So awesome that I have to put an exclamation point. And we also have put the light, I think, in a good way. So the attention, at least when I look at it, right, is going in a way that either you start on the top, so either your view comes in here and then you go kind of down here, and then you see the waterfall and it's all amazing, or you just start at the mountains themselves, for example, and the rocks, and then you go down here and you go down here. So I think the light looks really, really neat. So guys, well done, well done. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, please do not forget to hit the thumbs up button. And also, if you haven't already and you're new, don't forget to subscribe. It's going to help me out a lot. If you have any questions, just pop them beneath or in the blog or wherever you find this particular video. And I'm looking forward to post some more from now on back regularly, as I am not traveling for at least another month. And then it's Christmas. Merry Christmas. I see you later guys. Hope you enjoyed. See you later. Bye.